Right. Hello, welcome. We're a few minutes late starting, but never mind. This is my sister Kay. She doesn't like being introduced as my sister, I don't think. So we'll call her
Oh,
Well, you know now.
my little sister Kay. I'm just gonna
I don't like that bit.
no, exactly. And Kay will be able to introduce herself, obviously. But the reason that we're doing this session is because she's been on her own corporate journey that she's now transformed into a founder journey over the last 5 years. That is based around meditation and mindfulness, and founder well-being in many respects, or just human well-being in many respects as well. So not only does she use these practices for her clients and for her business, she first of all learnt them herself, and then decided to flip that and apply it to the wider world, if you like. So I've been of benefit where this is concerned as well. Not as much as I'd like to, because we don't live in the same country these days, but I've witnessed the benefits and the transformation that she's also been through. And I wanted to bring that obviously into the sanctuary because it is 50% of what we focus on here. And I think it will be very useful for you guys. Jazz, Twane, Paul are all from very different backgrounds. Jazz, you've almost met before, Kay. Paul is also in the UK. Twane is here in Dubai. They're all running very, very different businesses with very different perspectives and ideal outcomes. So I hope this will be of benefit to them as much as it is to everybody else who will be able to watch it on repeat once we finish this session. It will be up inside the sanctuary. So Kay, let's just start with you. Where are you at the moment? I think you're probably in St. Leonard's, right?
I'm in St. Leonard's, yeah. I've actually got this week off as a holiday. As founders, I'm sure this will sound familiar that a holiday isn't, quite a full break. But yeah, I've got a more easeful week ahead. I'm actually going to Glastonbury after here, to spend a little bit of time there before the crowds arrive on Wednesday when the festival opens, to spend some time in the healing fields. A very different Glastonbury experience to the last one that I went that I had was sort of back in 2008, I think, with you, Helen.
Yes.
Um,
Very
so
different.
yeah, dialing in from St. Leonard's, which is where I'm based at the moment. I've lived in London for probably just over 20 years, and felt ready to leave the big city for good a couple of years ago. So I relocated down here permanently just for a little bit of a quieter life, which I think was mainly driven by the fact that the rest of my life was so hectic with running the Zen Project, which maybe we'll come on to, that I was just grateful to have a little bit of space down here right by the sea. So it's lovely.
Yeah, no, it is, and I can definitely vouch for that. So tell us a little bit about, I suppose, what led you into the Zen Project, because you did have a very successful corporate career in advertising with a lot of travel and a lot of pressure. When did that change kind of come for you, and what did that look like?
It was gradual, actually, and it felt really natural. So I worked in the advertising industry for about 15 years or so, sort of climbed my way up through a media agency, and then moved in-house, and I was there for about 8 years. And I was kind of running that department, which was a really great place to be. I so much flexibility. As you said, there was a lot of travel. I was working for a North American company, so I was going back and forth to the States, but also coming out to spend time with you, Helen, because a lot of my work was in the Middle East, and it was, in lots of respects, it was marvelous. And I'm very grateful for all of that experience. But what I found that I was doing, I would say in the latter probably the last 5 years or so of that career, was that I was opting to devote as much time as I could to my yoga practice. So I ended up, during the time of working sort of at my last position, I qualified as a Kundalini yoga teacher, and I'd only been practicing Kundalini at that point for probably about a year, 18 months, having practiced yoga of varying forms before then. And there was just something about the Kundalini yoga practice that just really got me pretty instantly. And I decided to do teacher training to learn more, not to be a teacher. And what, as often happens, I did the course. It was about a year's course, and it was pretty involved. And I was still keeping up with my career and still working in the advertising industry, and all going really well. But I just realized that it just wasn't working for me anymore. And having experienced firsthand how well and healthy I was feeling, and that kind of increased vitality that I was getting from the Kundalini practice, I just wanted to share it with as many people as I could. And on that journey I was very blessed to have a really good friend who was up for creating something together. And that's really where the Zen Project was born. It was born from just wanting to share these practices and to make these practices accessible. So it's worth mentioning at this point that the Zen Project, as we operate out in community with schools, with young people, with corporates, we don't practice Kundalini yoga per se, but there are learnings that have come from it that we share with people. There is a little bit of a difference there, which I can go into a bit more detail on. But yeah, so the Zen Project was created in 2020. We established it early 2020.
Yeah. And the way that I always introduce the Zen Project or your business is by way of talking about the bus, right? The fact that you committed to buying this old clapped out yellow school bus from the States and importing it into the UK as your vehicle, literally, to get these practices out into communities, often, quite underprivileged communities, even places like prisons and so on, to get these kind of practices out there. And I think that was a stroke of genius because it really sparks the imagination. It's such a visual representation for what you do. You didn't, even though we were, COVID essentially, and I know how challenging that was for you. That yellow school bus is your mascot, is your whole kind of reason for being. And I think that was such a brave commitment to make as well.
I think you have to go big, don't you? If you have an idea, you have to go big with it. And I actually remember, when and this will be really familiar for all of you here, I'm sure, when you're coming up with an idea, you have an idea for a business, and you might share that idea with other people, and often people will give you just like very sort of loose advice, and it's not, this is outside of the conversations that we're having in a space like this. It's sort of people just sort of like adding a little bit of, this, and it's often, as much as it's with really good intention, it's often quite unhelpful. And I remember meeting up with someone in a conversation like that, and he was sort of offering advice, and he was like, I really wouldn't get this bus, it's a lot of money, you're going to be spending a lot of money on this bus. Why don't you just go really small and just start going to corporates and start just saying, look, we can bring these short guided meditations to your boardroom. And I was just like, but where's the impact? How is that gonna pique people's interests? And I understand that there's nervousness, of course, with anything, with any new idea, with anything that hasn't been done before. In the advertising world, we'll say that clients don't actually want to be the first to do anything. They actually want to be the second to do it because they want to see it sort of tried and tested, right? But going bold with your idea is a route to success, and of course it requires courage and bravery. And actually bringing it back to the practice of Kundalini yoga, that practice had given me that. It had gifted me with this ability to look through anything that would be restricting me, brought about by fear, and kind of releasing that, I suppose, enough to be able to be a bit braver.
Yeah, I think that's a great tie back to Sorry, my cat is just staring at me really weirdly. It's freaking me out a bit. Sorry, stop it. God, that was really weird. It's like she's listening to you, Kay, honestly. But that is a really great kind of tie back to um exactly this practice and exactly why it's so important to spend a bit of time. And I know, as you said, you're not going into these spaces and doing 90-minute sessions. You're doing 11-minute practices to clear the weeds, right? To clear the kind of fear and to tap back into those essential thought processes and those essential intentions that you can then bring about outside of yourself without all the kind of fear restricting you and everything else. And I think this is why these practices are so important and so powerful if you're not already doing them.
They are, and they are. The whole idea is, just as you said, Helen, the whole idea is that they're short experiences, they're short practices that you can integrate ideally into your daily life, or at least have something that you can call upon as and when you feel that you might need. I mean, the sort of overall message with things like meditation is that don't get yourself to breaking point, which is just like a life lesson, isn't it? Really, like try to sort of prepare yourself as much as you can. Sort of, I guess it's prevention rather than cure. But having things in your toolkit that you can call on when you feel that things are starting to sort of tip a little bit, which we all experience that. And I think actually the number one thing there is firstly to be honest about that, to be honest that life can be really challenging, and especially challenging as a founder. The pressure, the fact that you are always switched on, as I'm guilty of it. Probably the first thing I said on this call, I'm on holiday, but I'm not on holiday this week. Like it just doesn't really, it's not as easy as that. And you're aware of the ramifications if you do give yourself the time out, and it's really important. But if you are really keen to keep pushing on, you need to have things in your reserves. You need to have things that you can that are just for you, and that's vital. And if it's 10, 11 minutes of practice every day, I think pretty much all of us can probably find that if we're really honest about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. And now, you've grown the Zen Project. It is definitely out there in the world. It's a very recognizable brand, partly obviously, of course, because of the bus or the two buses you've got now. What's happening? I know there's been a bit of a shift this summer. So tell us about what's happening in the next few months for you.
Well, we took on our own festival this year. So off the back of incorporated within the Zen Project work, we've been creating wellness spaces at festivals. So already established festivals. The biggest one is Latitude, which is in like a 5 weeks time in Suffolk. And we've been doing that since the beginning. So this is our 5th year of doing that. And through various conversations within that world, we've ended up taking on our own festival, which was already in existence, ran by 2 women who were ready to hand it on to somebody else. So we acquired it at the beginning of the year. It's called Verve Festival. It's in Wiltshire in September. If anyone would like to come, be very welcome. And it's all about wellness in all its guises. It's a 2-day camping festival, and I'm looking to make it as open-minded as possible. It's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, and it looks amazing. The lineup, I've seen the lineup. I think when is it? Is the lineup out yet?
Yeah, well, we've got the sort of headline stuff out.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on the lineup this week to get the next round out there in the world. But yeah, it's nice, and it's a nice and diverse mix of practices. There's a lot of physical stuff, but I'm trying to incorporate as much music into the practices as well. I'm quite passionate about that. There's a lot of power when you match sound with movement as well, and this as there is with mantra and the sort of spoken word. So yeah, and then there's workshops and there's panel discussions, and one of the buses is going to be there, and it should be a nice couple of days.
Amazing. And before I kind of hand over to you to do your bit around the tools and the practices that you can share with us, I guess, can I just ask these days, given the fact that you're a dual founder basically at the moment, how much time do you spend on, meditation, wellness, that kind of thing? Like how much focus do you give it as an expert in this space, to give us all a little bit of a benchmark, I suppose?
I've had the same morning routine for the last probably 8 years, which consists of listening to a specific mantra every morning, which is somewhere between, and often chanting with it, but it's somewhere between 20 minutes and 30 minutes. So that's the sort of beginning of my day. And then I'll move into a home practice. And that is, again, that depends on what I'm working with and on. I tend to do them in blocks of time, so either for like just over a month, or the longest I did was 1,000 days, which I started in the beginning of lockdown to sort of get me through. Didn't expect that I would need it for that long, but I did, so I kept going with it, and that was about half an hour. And then I'll do, so basically it's probably about an hour in the morning, but that's part of my routine.
Yeah,
That's while I'm sort of getting things ready for the day.
yeah,
I'd say the actual practice of like meditation will range. Like sometimes the practice that I'm doing is 11 minutes, it's as short as that. Sometimes it's a bit like the one I'm doing at the moment, like full times, it's like 55 minutes, but I'll only do that for the next few weeks and then I'll move on to something else. So I hope I haven't really answered that question that clearly, have I? It varies. I'd say it starts at 11 minutes and it can go up to an
yeah.
hour
Yeah.
as a
And I
benchmark.
think and I think that's key really, isn't it? It's just as you said, it's making it accessible. It's whatever works for you in your time frames with your routine
Yeah.
and all the rest of it.
Some
And
yeah. I
that
think
obviously is going to
something
vary.
is better than nothing. So,
Yeah.
it's like everything. It's like going to the gym, like gym instructors will always say, I don't think they call them gym instructors anymore, do they? Trainers will, I haven't been to a gym for quite a long time. Trainers will often say, just show up, just show up and like
Get
walk on
there.
the
Yeah.
treadmill for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's the same with this. It's like have your ideal. So if I ever give anybody like a meditation to work with, I'll say like full time, so as in if you did the full length, like the as per the instructions, it's, I don't know, it's like 20 minutes, but bring it down. Like if one morning you simply just don't have the time, or you're traveling or whatever it is, bring it down. And on the note of traveling, there was always somewhere you can do it. I have friends that will be doing their practice on an airport concourse, um, you know, and there's actually always meditation rooms these days to go and use. But there is always a space for it, and I think the more we open up to that, the easier it becomes as well.
Yeah. I think just kind of normalize it. I mean, I know when I started mine during lockdown, I just made a deal with myself that I didn't have to be in my yoga clothes or in any specific guise sitting cross-legged on a yoga mat. I mean, that's just utterly ludicrous. That it doesn't need to be prescriptive. You can just, I do mine in bed, as I've shared with you guys a number of times. I go and get my cup of tea, I come back upstairs, I sit in bed for 7 minutes or 11 minutes or whatever it is, and I just get it done that way. And like you say, just show up with the intention of doing it even for a couple of minutes or 3 minutes, and often it will then extend naturally. And then it just becomes a habit, and once you've got that habit in your routine, well, if you're anything like me, it's hard to shift it. You just naturally do it. Anyway, I'm going to hand over to you now because time is ticking on. And we would love to hear what you can share with us in terms of tools that we can use as founders and beyond.
How long have we got? Have we got like 20 minutes or so?
Yeah, I'd say you got 20 minutes.
Okay, because I was actually going to share probably about 3 or 4 short practices that we can all do together if that feels good. You can take each one individually and do it, and they're all practices that I would do, and I do find myself doing, perhaps at some point during the day, or as part of my morning practice. But they will all help you to clear. So the thing about when you do a practice like a meditation practice, and when I say meditation, I don't mean just sort of sitting and closing your eyes. These are like, usually there's some breath pattern that goes with it, and often there's some movement that goes with it. And when you incorporate some changing of the breathing, some basic like physical movement, then you start to be able to channel and manage the mind in a way that is really powerful and really, really quick. So being in a seated meditation is wonderful, but lots of people find that quite challenging to do. And when you've been working, you've been working with the brain all day, for example, or all week or all month or all year, and you haven't been able to switch off, being asked to sit in stillness, and this whole idea of sitting with your thoughts is really tricky for anybody. It's really, really tricky. And it's also not necessarily a safe thing to do, because you're not, unless you really know like how to, you're not really managing the ruminating thoughts. The thoughts are still whirring, and you might slow them down a little bit, but you're not really clearing anything. So, I mean, all of that said, different things work for different people. But when we're looking at like a sort of very quick, like an efficient way to practice, then bringing some movement and bringing some different types of breathing in is a really, really, really good way to do that. So that's what we'll do today. We'll do like maybe 3 different things using the breath and using some movement. I encourage you all just to enjoy it. So if it's possible, I mean, feel free to shut down your camera if you want to just have this time for you. I would really encourage that. I will give you hopefully clear instructions. And I'll talk you through everything, but I just really encourage you to have this time for yourself. So we'll be about probably 15-20 minutes max. There's going to be, as you all look quite comfy seated, so we'll do everything from seated. Yeah, and there will just be some gentle upper body movement. As with all of this stuff, you read your own body, take it at your own pace. If for any reason something doesn't feel good, just come back to regular breathing, and don't worry about it at all. These are all just some simple tools for you to give a try and see if any of them resonate. So just come into a comfortable seated position. So if you're on a chair, which probably most of you are, just see if you can bring both your feet kind of connecting to the ground. So you want your feet to be roughly hip distance apart, and feeling all 4 corners of your feet connecting to the ground. And just, you can either have your hands just resting on the lap, or maybe bring them to the heart center and softly close down the eyes. Allow the shoulders to drop. Feel the connection of your sit bones into the chair, the ground beneath. And that sense of a steady foundation rooting into the ground. And with that steady foundation, feel a lift coming from the pelvis, the spine, reaching all the way up to the crown of the head and beyond. And with the eyes just softly closed, begin to deepen the breath. Feeling as though you're breathing all the way down into the belly on the inhale. Exhaling fully and completely. Taking a deep breath in. Exhaling. And do one more breath like that. I'd like you to bring the arms up so that they're in a V. So the arms are straight, the palms are facing forwards, and they're up in like probably about a 60-degree angle. Have the shoulders pulling back a little bit. And from this position, I want you to just begin opening and closing the hands into fists. So working really quickly as feels comfortable, keeping the arms nice and straight, keeping the eyes closed. Just have an internal gaze at the third eye, the point between the brow. And just keep opening and closing the hands. And just keep moving like that. So the arms are really nice and straight. By keeping the arms straight, we're activating the heart center, working with the heart meridian. And this movement with the hands, with the fists, it's working with the liver. So in traditional Chinese medicine, the liver is, well, actually the liver and the spleen, but we're working with emotions such as maybe frustration, maybe anger. And you might actually find this practice a bit annoying. I often find it a bit annoying because you're clearing energy, right? So it's a good thing. We're not going to be here for that much longer. We're bringing the energy, releasing the energy from this space around the liver, the spleen, this frustration, and also these kind of this very active mind, the monkey mind, that is said to sit in the spleen. And we're bringing it up to the heart with these nice straight arms, working with the heart space, our seat of compassion, just lifting and releasing this energy. Do another 30 seconds here. Just long, deep breathing. Last few seconds. And then take a deep breath in. Hold the breath. And exhale, bring the arms down and just shake the arms out a little bit. From the shoulders all the way to the fingers. And then keeping the eyes closed, just coming into stillness. Regulate the breath. Calm, steady breathing. And we're going to move into some twists next. So you're going to raise the arms. You're going to have the fingers, the front of the shoulders, the thumbs at the back, and the upper arms are parallel to the ground. And keeping the eyes closed. This is a really simple movement of inhaling, twisting the torso to the left, exhaling, twisting to the right. And you can work quite quickly here and make the breath nice and powerful, breathing through the nose. and continue with that movement, making this a moving meditation. And if you find the mind wandering, maybe bringing a mantra in, inhaling, let, exhaling, go. Inhale, let, exhale, go. Just helping to focus the mind, keeping the eyes closed, just softly closed. Powerful breathing, just having the breath power the movement as well. Twists, any sort of torso twists are hugely beneficial for the digestive system. And again, we're working with the liver and the spleen. So we're still working on releasing those emotions that I tend to get quite stuck, particularly in those spaces. Just helping to bring about some space in the body and, of course, space in the mind. Powerful breathing. A few more seconds. We're doing 3 minutes of all of these, by the way. 3 minutes is a good length of time for all of these. And you can do these, you know, as some of you are doing, literally do them at your desk. Any time of day. Build them into your morning practice. Do them before bed. I've never not felt better from doing any of these practices, I have to say. It's probably something that I should have mentioned before when people ask me about my motivation for doing the practices that I do. It's really simply that I've never done a practice and regretted it in any way. I've always come out feeling better. Okay, and take a deep breath in, come to stillness in the center. And exhale, bring the hands down onto the lap. Come back into stillness. Again, regulate the breath. Keeping the eyes closed. Okay, this is our last practice. This is one of my favorites. We're not supposed to have favorites in the world of yoga, but this is a favorite of mine. It's a little bit like a rowing action. So you're going to do alternate arms and you reach forwards and then you again bring your hands into fists and pull forcefully back. So you'll find that the body starts to twist as you do it. It's a powerful movement. Again, the eyes are closed. Just allow the breath to do whatever the breath wants to do with this. You will find that it picks up a bit of a pace as you do it. This is like it's quite an active posture. Again, it's a moving meditation. And this sensation or this action of grabbing, reaching forwards and grabbing, pulling back and then switching arms. So we're still actually working with the liver space and working with the digestive organs. So there is a theme here. It's, you know, we are still releasing a lot of energy that would be stuck in the body. Actually, as with the posture that we did before as well, they're both really balancing. So when we're doing these sort of alternate moves, and with the earlier practice when we were twisting left and twisting right in the breathing, it's bringing some balance both to the body but also to the brain, specifically to the brain. So balancing the left and the right hemispheres of the brain, which in turn just is really going to bring you some quieter and sort of thinking space, if you like. So the whole point of these practices is to offer you some space. And it's really important when we come out of this last posture, which is going to be our very last one, there's going to be just a couple of minutes, maybe 2-3 minutes of just complete stillness. And I'd like you just to spend that time. When we get to it, I'll be sitting in silence too, and I'd love for you to spend that time just allowing the practices to integrate and just allowing the body and the mind to come into this feeling of unity, or acknowledging this feeling, this sense of unity, and just observing the stillness. So we'll just be here doing this practice for just under a minute. Keep moving, keep the pace up. I can't see you, but I trust the pace is still high, the energy is high. Keeping the eyes closed, stay within. Last few seconds. And then take a deep breath in the middle, come to stillness. Hold the breath. And exhale. Bring the hands down onto the lap. Once again, just letting the breath settle. Feeling soft and still. And then bring the hands back to the heart space. So left hand on the heart and the right hand over the left. And just the last few moments of just observing any shifts. Don't have to name it, but just observing how you're feeling. Taking a deep breath in together. Exhale through the mouth. When you're ready, no rush. Blinking the eyes open and coming back into the space.
That was lovely. Thank you.
Very welcome. They're all practices that you can do. I mean, as you did, at your desk, they're all in this, life that we're in right now of being hunched over our screens and whatever. Whilst, of course, these are all thousands and thousands of years old, they're actually really coming into their peak of being really helpful. So really good for working with the spine and working with the shoulders. So all of those practices are really helpful for, just kind of releasing any tension as much as anything else. as much as the more physiological, sort of emotional, if you like, sort of benefits.
Yeah, and it's always fascinating to hear about which areas of the body they're, correlated to as well. And I suppose just the expectation and acceptance of the fact that your body and your emotions and your output and everything around you are all very, very clearly connected. And just using, these moving meditations that you're doing, Kundalini, which is if you've never tried it, guys, it is a mental form of yoga. It's insanely impactful, but it looks very weird. Like, you do very weird stuff during Kundalini practices. But it's I think one of the most impactful forms of yoga, and obviously Kaye agrees with me. She is the expert here. But I want to open it up to you guys. How was that experience for you? And do you have any questions before we round up 2:00?
I have a question. The first exercise, so I think that I'm quite fit because I go to the gym regularly. But the first one, this one, towards the end, it almost felt like like somebody was pulling these tendons, and it almost felt like impossible to keep doing that exercise.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
No, I mean, it's so in all of those practices that we did, actually, and I probably should have mentioned this earlier on, but it's the repetition that brings about, or is a big thing that brings about the change and the transformation. So that, I mean, I think that is just literally the tendons being worked, and it's like it's not like we sit around or walk around doing this very much. So it's a bit of a shock to the body, and there's always going to be, areas that we might not be working on as much, even though we are really fit and, sort of very healthy and going to the gym and whatnot. So that is just something to sort of bear in mind when you come into this place of repeating actions. So with everything that we did, you start to activate the vagus nerve. So whilst it's quite confusing, because as I said while I was doing it with you, I find it annoying, like it's quite an irritating thing to do. And that is directly linked to the liver. That is an emotion that is linked to the liver, which is what we're activating from doing these actions. But it's whilst it's irritating, it's also like soothing your entire system. It's just the mind is finding it irritating. And, you might have some isolated like annoyance of like, or perhaps not pain, but you can feel different sensations on the tendons. But the actual system is beginning to be soothed by these repeated actions. So it's a really interesting combination of like an experience.
Is there a specific emotion that's connected to the liver?
Yeah, it's anger and frustration.
Okay, well, that would explain it. I'm new to the entrepreneurial space, so there's a lot of frustration.
Yeah, absolutely, totally. I mean, that's a traditional Chinese medicine approach. So when you do, so most sort of Indian and Ayurvedic systems are really closely linked to traditional Chinese medicine. So the yoga and the sort of acupuncture work really well together, which is why we talk about the activating certain meridians that are linked to different organs. That's why it's all comes into play.
Thank you.
Paul, how was your experience, given you are in your office this morning?
Well, luckily there's only Danny here, so I found that first one quite. My shoulders hurt for that one. My shoulders are really tight, so that's the one that it wasn't my wrists and stuff. It was the actual shoulders. Was quite interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was great. My wife's into all this Ayurvedic stuff, so I'm getting my head around it. It's quite useful.
Yeah.
That's really good.
Good. I'm pleased.
And Jazz?
That was a great session. Thank you, Kaye. Yeah, I did shoulders yesterday in the gym, so that was all good at some points. But yeah, and that was the mind telling me that I was in pain. And your grip comes from your forearm Twani. So we should always do these little exercises in the gym to strengthen those forearms. But no, it's something that you talked about your morning routine. It's really hard when you're starting a business, as you all know. Is I actually have an evening routine which I have much more control over. Is to make sure that I go to bed and do what I need to do. But I'm also very aware now, having spent those 3 years in prison, that actually when I need to leave the room that I'm in, I go for a walk. And I'm very blessed to live by the river, so I spend a lot of time walking, alone. And that really helps me to calm the mind down, where I'm literally just focusing on putting the next step in front of the other.
That's great. I just bloody love walking. It's like my second favorite hobby.
Yeah. I actually notice my mental health declines when I don't manage to get out for a walk. It's not so much the exercise side of things. It's the process of walking. And again, I think it's that marriage between mind and body and spirit, right? Like
Yeah.
it's a great space to marry those things, particularly if you can do it on your own. And I think, the sort of meditation that we traditionally view as meditation, of kind of sitting there in stillness, like you said, Kay, and finding that your mind is just impossible to control, give it something else to think about.
Yeah.
Suddenly it comes up with a whole different perspective and viewpoint. And I think anything where movement is, or sound movement, whatever is concerned, really like massively just accelerates that process and gives you access in a different way.
Yeah. And Jazz, I'm really envious of you having an evening routine, because in lots of respects, I mean, they're both great. Like, you do a morning practice, you do an evening practice, or you have an evening routine, but the ability to clear the day, which is when we need it the most, really, when we've been accumulating all of this stuff and this mental load, and like, as founders, usually it's guilt that we haven't done what we've wanted to do and all of the other stuff that's going on. If you can find a way to clear some of that in the evening and give yourself proper rest, is amazing. I really struggle with it. I mean, as Helen knows, I'm much more of a morning person. So I just, I really value the mornings, but I'm very envious. Like I would struggle to commit to an evening thing. So that's great that you have that.
I sleep really fast, so I only sleep 6
Do you?
hours. Yeah. So 10 till 4. But the reason why I do the evenings is because I believe, and I try and advocate this, is that rest and recovery is part of your business strategy. It's one of the pillars.
Yeah.
It's one of the pillars, but we don't put it on the business plan. That actually, we just think we've got to, it's all about hustle harder and dominate, and it's not. It's like, actually, sometimes you can magnet stuff towards yourself by actually being still.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's an absolute fundamental need in life in general, but particularly when you're a founder, because you have to make decisions on a constant basis. And if you don't have a clear mind, if you don't have a well-rested mind, you will not make good decisions, and you will not be able to access the best version of yourself to make those decisions. And that's, as we all know, when things can start to spiral in the wrong direction. So yeah, no, I love that, Jazz, and I think I can wholeheartedly agree with that. I unfortunately need a lot more sleep. I wish I could exist on 6 hours, but as Kate knows, I'm sort of an 8-9 hour person, which is annoying, but what can you do? Hey, I don't think I can change that, however much meditation I do. So thank you so much, Kay, for being part of this. Yeah, really nice to have you in the sanctuary and sharing your wisdom. Where can people find you or access anything that you've talked about today?
So the Zen Project, the best place is to put the Zen Project into Instagram, and we should hopefully come up with a yellow school bus. And Verve Wellness Festival should come up easily on Instagram as well. Yeah, and I've so enjoyed doing this. I was teaching online Kundalini for a few years, over the sort of lockdown and beyond period, and I just once a week was difficult to incorporate when as other work was getting really busy, but I will pick up some form of a regular online Kundalini class. So I'll make sure that that comes out to you guys in case you'd ever like to join.
Yeah, definitely. I'll be there front of the queue. Cool. Well, thank you, and everybody
Lovely to
enjoy
see
your
you all.
day. I'll be interested to see if there are any kind of like delayed action effects of this as well, because that's often what I find with Kundalini is that it just sort of there's a bit of a compound effect with it, and you notice it through the day and even into the next day. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear if anybody experiences that. And to everyone who's watching this on repeat, I hope you enjoyed it as well. And obviously, this is a very easy, accessible practice to start putting into your day to day. So yeah, please do that and reach out to Kaye if you need anything else. Thanks, everybody, and have a lovely Monday.
Thank you.
See you soon.
Namaste.
Namaste, indeed.
Take care. See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye bye.